Hi, I want to talk to you guys today about dairy. Dairy is interesting. I want to talk about the good and the bad. And about 10,000 years ago, people started drinking cow's milk in Europe, so Middle to Eastern Europe. And when they drink dairy, it was kind of like nutrition for them when food was scarce. So, this is how drinking cow's milk and goats and sheep's milk became popular in Europe. And then it handed down to us in the States. Now, let's think about why dairy is produced. Dairy is produced from the mother, right? So that she can feed her young. So within the first year of that young's development, there are healthy fats and great nutrition in that milk for that mammal's young. And even as humans, it's true, right? But we don't drink breast milk after about, oh gosh, 2, 3, 4 years old. And we start losing the capability to digest dairy properly. Dr. Mark Hyman is one of those smart doctors I follow because he's heavy into nutrition and he knows a lot about the good and the bad of all sorts of different foods and what we should be eating and what we should be avoiding. And so he says 70% of the adult population in the world cannot digest dairy properly. And why is that? Well, one reason is because when we're young, we have lactase, and the lactase helps digest the lactose in the milk. And so when we get to be, 4, 5, 6 years old, we lose that ability to digest dairy properly. It's so interesting to me that we still drink cow's milk or other mammals' milk. Think about it. We don't drink human breast milk after, like I said, after 3, 4, 5 years old, because we get weaned off of milk and start learning different nutrition. So we eat different things when we get older. Our nutrition and our bodies change. So when I healed myself from MS almost 10 years ago, I followed Dr. Terry Walls. And Terry Walls doesn't want you to have any dairy at all. Dr. Mark Hyman says we should be eliminating most dairy. And if you want to eat some dairy, there's a few rules you should follow, and you should limit dairy as much as possible because of dairy's nutrition that I just explained to you. It's great when you're young, it's great when you're a baby, but when you get older, it's not so good for you, and especially if it's from a different mammal. Now, if you remember the low-fat craze, I was brought up in the 80s, and of course I believed that non-fat or low-fat milk was better for you than whole milk, which is really not the case. We have learned that whole fats from like coconut milk, for example, or olive oil, or fats from animal proteins that have been raised organically, pasture-raised beef or organic chicken or wild-caught fish, those fats that are natural are really good for us as human beings. Now, again, before I was diagnosed with MS, guess what I was eating for breakfast every day? I was eating Raisin Bran with non-fat milk. This was a part of my daily ritual for breakfast. And I thought this was good for me. And I found out later that really it had the 3 sins. Well, I say it's the 3 sins. So dairy, gluten, and sugar. Raisin Bran, I really didn't look at labels before. Now I look at labels whenever I buy anything. And Raisin Bran has loads of sugar in it. So I didn't realize I was essentially poisoning myself with what I was eating. And I thought I was eating the right thing for breakfast. So in Dr. Hyman's book, Food, which I have, it's a fantastic book if you want to pick it up. But he's got a section on all sorts of different categories of food that we eat, and dairy is one of them. And in his dairy section, he talks about how the dairy industry had lobbied Congress and the government to put in the food pyramid that dairy is an essential part of our diet. And if you pick up this book and you read it, and I can't remember the dates, but it was from like 1990 something to 2016, that Congress and people in government were paid like $46 million to get dairy on the nutrition platform from the government. And it really goes deeper, and it's really sad if you start reading more into this. And then he also states that the federal funding during that time, and it still might be true today, I don't know, but federal funding for children's school lunches never happened unless milk was included in those children's lunches. So it's really too bad that we're almost being forced to drink milk. And if you remember all of those commercials, remember the milk mustache campaigns? And you don't see those anymore. Do you realize that you don't see milk commercials anymore? And it's because the milk industry realizes now that milk really isn't so good for us. And if you remember those commercials stating that milk creates strong bones as you get older, well, guess what? Mark Hyman says that's totally untrue. And so the milk industry had to take away those commercials too. So what kind of dairy can we be eating? And really, if you take dairy out of your diet totally, you will be better off. But Mark Hyman does say that if you drink a little bit, not a lot, of sheep's milk or goat's milk, they are Casein 2 as opposed to Casein 1. Casein 1 cows are commercial cows that are raised to produce dairy for the dairy industry only. And these dairy cows are fed things that really cows aren't supposed to eat. And this is oats, this is corn, and this is lots of other things that we probably don't know that these cows are eating. And later we found out that when we eat foods from animals that are not healthy, animals that don't eat the right things, they get sick. And so when we're eating sick animals, that's not good for us either. And these dairy cows that are raised with Casein 1 milk, a lot of those dairy cows, which are not fed the right things, are given antibiotics because they start getting diarrhea because of the foods that they're eating. And they're given other injections to produce more milk, which in essence creates a cow that really is not healthy. And so cows that produce Casein 2 are normally goat's milk, sheep's milk, and there are a few cows that are raised with Casein 2. And these are cows that only are pasture raised and eat grass, because that's what cows are supposed to eat, right? Grass from the land, all sorts of different grasses. And these cows are healthier and produce healthier milk. Now let's get into yogurt and cheese. Yogurt and cheese are fermented, and these are much better for you, except when you look at the sugar that is added to yogurt, like Yoplait yogurt, for example. And I'm sorry to pick on one brand because a lot of them have the same amount of sugar, but one serving of Yoplait yogurt is the same as drinking a can of Coca-Cola. It's got so much sugar in it. It's more like eating a dessert, and that's really not good for us. So what I try to do, I try to avoid dairy as much as possible. And again, cheese and yogurt are fermented. So this is easier on our systems, right? So when we eat fermented foods, there's usually good yeast and good bacteria. It's a probiotic, right? So those probiotics are better for our systems. But if we have to eat cheese, or we can't get away from eating cheese, I'm a cheese lover myself, And actually, I took a hair test and I'm allergic to all dairy. So I really shouldn't have any, but I will go out once in a while and have gluten-free pizza with a gluten-free crust with my husband. I don't have that very often. My rule is if I eat 90 to 95% good whole foods, my body can take care of the rest. But as I was healing with MS, I was very strict with myself. And because I healed pretty quickly. But now that my body is healthy, my body can handle a little bit of the food that might not be so good for me. And so with cheese, I might eat a little bit here and there, not a lot, but I don't want to take joy out of my life either. And so when I can eat a little bit of cheese, it makes me happy. But with yogurt, I really try to avoid yogurt with dairy altogether because I found a brand, it's called So Delicious, and I love it. And it's sugar-free and it's made from coconut milk. And it doesn't taste like coconut at all. And I love it. I can buy it either plain, and it really tastes like sour cream, or I can buy it vanilla flavored, and that's really good. And if I want to eat that just by itself, like I don't even need the sugar because I weaned myself off of sugar a long time ago, but I can have some. And if I want to, I can add like a little bit of maple syrup to it and it'll be a little bit sweeter, but I don't usually do that, and there's a lot of other plant-based milks out there. There is almond milk and hemp milk and cashew milk and coconut milk. And these are much better for you, especially if you make almond milk, for example, on your own. Go to a YouTube video and learn how to do it. I've got this in one of my cookbooks on how to do it, and it's pretty easy. So I encourage you to omit dairy from your diet as much as you can because you're going to be better off. The other thing that Mark Hyman talks about is dairy can also be a catalyst for cancer. And I've also learned that cancer cells love sugar. If you've got cancer, for example, I wouldn't eat dairy or sugar at all because you want to heal. And same with autoimmune diseases, of course, because that's what my whole platform is about. If you can just avoid dairy while you're healing, and maybe you can add in a little bit of A2 casein milk products later, you're going to be much better off. So I hope this helps you. If you have any questions, reach out to me. And until next time, nourish your way to health.